Okay, so in this part of the tutorial, we're going to create our main container for our site, and then we're going to create a fluid or create the markup for our fluid grid system. And we're going to have grids within grids as well, so you'll see how that works. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we'll just get rid of this for now. And let's return to our text editor. Now we've got this hero unit here, but underneath this, as we've said, we don't want the grid system or the fluid grid system to be part of this, or even the container. So we want it to span the full width of the page. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new container. And that's literally just going to be container. So let's pop some text in there so we can see what we're working with. And you see that that's in here. So as with the container within the nav, the container within the content as well is just as important. So now what we want to do is create our outer markup for our fluid grid system. So this is row. It is row fluid. But if you just wanted a sort of a standard grid system, you just do row. So we're using the row fluid. Lovely. So now inside, for each of the grids that we create, we need to span them a particular width or give them a particular class to do this. Now this is a 12 row grid system by default. So that means we can have half and half. So we can have 6 and 6, which will be one side left and right equal containers, or we could have a span 8 and a span 4, which 8 and 4 is 12, so we have a large on the left and then a small on the right, or we could have a 4 then an 8, so we could swap them around. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to say div class equals something and just copy that down. So we've got two containers. I'm going to say left and right. The span on the left is going to be span 8, and this is going to be span 4. So 8 add 4 is 12, which makes up the full width of our fluid grid system. And this is on the left, this is on the right. Let's check it out. Refresh. There we go. So we've got left-hand side. Let's inspect that quickly. There we go. So that spans 770 pixels, and this spans 370 pixels. And you can see here that we've got the sort of relative size difference, and we've also got all the margin done for us. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we just chop and change this. So I'm going to say 6 and 6 and refresh. So we've got an equal amount now. So we've got these two as equal sizes. And what happens if we mess this up and provide, say, 8 and 6? Well, it's not going to be good. This is here, but this one, unfortunately, is too large, so it's come down to the next line. So that's something that you definitely don't want to do. So we're going to leave it with 8 and 6. 8 and 4. And we'll pull this down so we can start writing some markup or writing some content. Okay, so I'm going to copy in, I'm going to create a paragraph here, just sort of explaining something about the site, even though it doesn't. I've generated some text from Cupcake Ipsum. Now, this is by no means of promotion, but I recommend you check this out. Instead of generating boring lorem ipsum, it generates something a bit more pleasant. So it's a good idea to check that out if you're mapping up your site. Okay, cool. So I've gone ahead and pasted that in. Let's go ahead and just refresh and see how that looks. Now, this might not look like much, but we've actually got some, some pretty nice things going on here. Let's go ahead and inspect this and see what kind of styles have been applied to this sort of paragraph by default. Oh no, we've got a margin. What else have we got? Okay, so not necessarily applied to the paragraph. We've got the margin applied to the paragraph, so we've got a sort of consistent margin underneath each paragraph. We haven't got margin at the top, we've got it at the bottom, so it sort of stacks down nicely. We've got a font on the body, which we've already seen evidence of here. We've got a font size, and we've got line height, which is extremely important for readability. If I go ahead and get rid of that, look how unreadable that text is. So this is another good thing about working with a framework like this. Everything's so consistent. Okay, so less about that and more about grid systems. We're going to keep this right-hand side empty until we add another feature in here. But under this paragraph that I've created here with this text, I want to implement more grids, but within this. Now, the point of a grid system is so you can sort of structure everything out nicely, everything sort of, comes together nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and create another row fluid container. So we can do this. We can put them inside of each other. It doesn't matter. So row fluid. I'm going to go ahead and create some more divs. So div class equals something. This I'm going to choose 4. The reason I'm going to choose 4 is because I'm going to have 3 containers here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12 adds up to 12, obviously. And this is it. So when I refresh and we scroll down a bit. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Span 4. There we go. Lovely. So when I refresh now, we've got this here, this here, and this here. All lovely, equal, and within each other. We could even go ahead and as far as to put more inside of these small ones. So it sort of stacks down, if you like, or embeds within each other. So in here we're going to be creating some markup a bit later. We'll look at that in the next part where we look at some various bits and bobs. But now let's take a look at how this has sort of scaled, or how this does scale down nicely. So let's do this really, really slowly. So it's already started to change here. When I have it at this size, it's just normal. When I pull it in, you know, accommodates for maybe slightly smaller resolutions. As we pull it down even further, it starts to accommodate for tablet devices. We've got this little pull thing that sort of comes down here, so you can see that we've got the navigation adds this margin bottom. We could easily get rid of that in the style sheet, so go ahead and try that out yourself. And we've now got this active, so if you've got lots of menu items, this is going to save you a lot of hassle, and you've now got this sort of drop down. Good for tablets as well, sort of this big button you can just press and get everything you need. It also sort of leads sort of less distraction as well. So as we pull it in, everything's sort of getting a bit smaller, and then things start to change. So now everything's sort of stacking under each other to make it a lot more readable, so we're not squashing everything together. So this is all coming in, squashing in, and then everything's starting to stack underneath each other. So it's looking good. So this is extremely easy stuff, and if I wasn't talking over the video, you know, we would have had this done in 10-15 minutes. So let's go ahead and just add some content into here. Let's go ahead and do this, and we'll just copy and paste the markup over. So I'm going to set header 4 in here. Headers in HTML5 are sort of seen as it comes down, as it sort of comes through your markup. They're almost seen as, like, if you had an H2 at the top and an H4 and then an H1 at the bottom of your page, they sort of stack down anyway nicely. It's really hard to explain, but don't worry too much about what headers you're using, just as long as you are consistent. So I'm going to say helpful, and I'm going to create a paragraph of text here, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy that in. I'm also going to go ahead and create a button here as well. Class equals btn, and I'm going to say get in touch. So that now looks like that. So let's just check the responsive nature of that. Brilliant. Looks, you know, fairly nice. It just sort of pulls it in. We're not seeing any problems with buttons or anything like that when these are just like this. It's all looking fairly nice, so we don't need to worry about anything there. So let's just go ahead, and I'm going to drag in in fact, let's just copy and paste from here. So let's copy this into there, copy that into there, remove the button for that one, and here I'm going to say, in fact here I'm going to say our clients, and here I'm going to say quick. It doesn't really matter what you put in here, but I'm just trying to sort of differentiate. Okay, so let's talk about links now, instead of me babbling on. So I'm going to say we're super quick at doing stuff, and then I'm going to create an anchor, ask our clients, hash, and let's refresh. Cool, so after all that babbling, we've now got a link here, which you can see has been very nicely styled with this this blue color. We've got a hover effect, so it goes slightly darker and an underlined. Obviously, you can change this due to preference, sort of, you know, colors you might be using, particularly on your site. It doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and change the color of these buttons. There are loads of options, but I'm just going to use primary. So there are loads of default, well, about 5 or 6 default options, and then you can obviously download templates and stuff. But that's essentially it. What we're going to do in the next part is we're just going to talk about a few more fiddly bits, and then we're actually going to create this right hand side menu, and then we're going to talk about icons as well. So a few sort of odd bits and ends, but essentially we're pretty much already looking, you know, good to go here. So in the next part we hopefully should wrap up.